Recently, I had the pleasure of talking with Shayla Jones. Shayla is an entrepreneur, multi-instrumentalist, musician. She's also the author of I'm Stuck, The Waiting Season, which is a book she felt called to write. We talked about her book and how writing it helped define her purpose and how this book can help other people who are feeling stuck or like they need some direction. This is the Table Talks podcast, and this is my conversation with Shayla Jones. Welcome to the show, Shayla.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
I'm really excited that you're on the show and that you're here talking with me today, because the reason I started this show was to keep the conversation going with, people who I call guiding lights like yourself. And I truly mean that. And, helping others find their way. And to quote, the title of your book, actually, from, out of this feeling of I'm stuck, which is a great title, and to move towards success in their life, whatever that looks like to them, and it's no small thing in my eyes. So just happy that you're here and talking with me today about this. And, we're going to talk about your book called I'm Stuck. Before we get to that, do you mind just kind of telling the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I grew up it's right outside of Columbia. It's Hopkins, South Carolina. Then I later moved to Columbia, South Carolina, and got my high school diploma. And then I went to a city called Orangeburg. And I went and got my BA in music performance. And I got a minor in psychology from Claflin University. I'm also a musician. Me being a musician kind of opened up entrepreneurship in a way. I didn't realize that until recently, that I kind of been a business myself. I just didn't have that mindset. But I was taking care of my grandmother. At the time I had stopped working, and I realized that I had a lot of things going for myself and a lot of ideas, but I just kind of was stagnant on what to fully pursue. And it was bothering me, because I didn't want to be doing 3 and 4 things at the same time. I just, because it would be harder to complete, one thing if I'm just doing 4 different things. So I kind of just thought about it, and I did a self-assessment. I prayed about it, and I literally had just heard, write about the season you're in. And I was just, frustrated. Maybe that makes sense. When you have potential and like your capability, and yet it's like you're having a hard time getting there. So of course it just frustrated me a lot. And I just had to assess my whole situation, who I was around, what was my mindset, what do I want, and make the adjustments to be able to pursue, with the pure heart and with the right intentions.
Yeah. I can relate to that too, because like you're saying, sometimes like, you got something, you have this idea or this gift, or whatever that it is, and you want to do something with it. Like you said, 3 or 4 things going at the same time, and you're like, how do I do all this? Like, how did you do it? Like, what are like some of the things that you did to focus yourself?
Right. So for me, what it was, like I said, writing a book was not one of my options. Let me, let that be known. That was not a part of the 4 or 5, however many. That just was not in there. And when I prayed about it and I heard that, and I was like, okay, but that didn't answer my question. I'm trying to figure out, should I do this? Should I do this? That's not an answer. But when I decided to listen to what God said to me, I got answers on things that I needed to change before I even pursued any of those options. I had to do a self-assessment within me and my circle and my mindset. But it took me doing that assessment and literally writing about the things that were bothering me and frustrating me. And then once I finished and I felt like, okay, because I knew I wasn't going to write a really long book. Once I got to a certain place, I said, okay, I'm going to stop. Maybe let me come up with a little bit more and think, and then I'll stop. And that's when afterwards, and I was towards the end of my publishing process, then I knew what I wanted to pursue next out of those choices. It just I just felt more energy towards that. But it took that moment of frustration and that moment of being at a standstill. I don't mean standstill as in like I just wasn't doing nothing with my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a busy person. Being a musician, my uncle is like a political consultant. So I grew up, being in the streets, helping candidates and voting and all of that. So I've always just had different things to do, engaged in churches or whatever. So it wasn't that I was just home, but as far as, my heart and my soul, it was more to do besides the regular routine I was used to. So that's what I mean by at a standstill. So it just was a lot of conversation and a lot of reevaluation that helped me get to where I need to be.
It's so interesting too, like writing a book wasn't even on your like radar, you know. It's just so amazing how sometimes like you don't even think about it, but like that's, it's just so interesting to me, like through all that, your self-assessment. And it's so amazing too, you had your uncle who kind of mentored you a little bit, and then going on this path to kind of write this book. And it's just, I find that really interesting and amazing, and I think it's really relatable to a lot of us out there. And and Tim, what you think about this? We all get stuck sometimes, and sometimes we can, if we're fortunate, like you have an uncle or someone out there to kind of help you with that, and you realize it, and you're like, you can get yourself out of that and back to things. But it kind of feels like right now a lot of people are stuck now more than ever, and they may not even realize it. Like you said, maybe they're just
Right.
doing a lot of things and they're going through the motions. But what would you say to them about, like, what are some signs that somebody might be stuck, and then what are some first steps to do? I know you mentioned self-assessment before, so that might be an answer to that.
For me, I'm not trying to, be deep, but there is a difference between being called and being chosen. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a scripture too, but even if you're not a Christian, you can apply, it in your own way. You never really go through things. You don't understand certain things unless you go through it. But I truly believe in that. There are people with a lot of potential, but it takes a yearning and it takes, wanting that change. And if you are, how can I put it? Eventually, when you are chosen, something's going to irritate you if you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
Mm.
It's like, you got a feeling, is how I can put it. And I still was doing things, but I knew that there was more. Like, I couldn't tell you how to get there, how I was going to get there. I couldn't tell you what I was going to do. I couldn't tell you why I'm doing it and why I feel like I need to do this right here instead of, whatever else other people were doing. But I just knew I had
Mm.
more in me. So it irritates me after a certain point of time. That's just kind of like if you got a bad friendship and somebody always wants something, and you can't really get much out of the friendship. It might be, it might last for a while, but eventually you're going to get tired and you're going to want to change. So that's how I can put it for me in my situation. So I would say to the person, if you know deep down in your spirit and your heart that you want something different and that what's usual should not be any longer. And stagnant could be more than like money. It could be your friends, it could be your job, it could be your mindset, it could be your
Mm-hmm.
family. I mean, it could be a multitude of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just money wise. If you feel in your heart that, you want something different or you need a change or a shift in your life, the self-assessment is very key. And you have to be willing to put pride aside because you're only assessing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be willing to put the ego and the pride aside and be like, okay, what am I doing that like I really need to change? For me, part of that was, I got a big heart and I do a whole lot for people. I give more than I receive. And that's just kind of how I was raised. So after a certain point of time with certain friends, if I keep giving, and I gotta keep calling you in order for us to talk, eventually like something like that would frustrate me after a certain point of time. And I'd be like, okay, are we really friends or are we acquaintances?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, what do I need to do that doesn't stress me out or doesn't irritate me anymore? Like, how can I adjust this connection? Because every connection doesn't have to be completely lost and forgotten about. Sometimes connections just need to be adjusted. And for me, I'm always around people who have something that I want. I'm not around people who just want to party and gossip. That's just
Mm-hmm.
not what I'm around. So you have to be in the right environment to help you see some of the changes that you need. And for me, a part of that self-assessment, I ask my friends, I'm like, what's something that I do that might irritate you?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's, small and frivolous, I wouldn't really pay much attention. But I mean deep, like, do I keep repeating myself, or, am I not making sense? And do you feel like I'm being a narcissist or something? Like, what is some things that irritate you concerning me? And I can listen to it and take what I need to take from it. That's the steps that I would do in order to make a change in my life.
Yeah, and I think that you hit on some very important things. And, that's the problem. Like sometimes, like you said, our ego gets in our way. The ego just keeps us from even asking some of those questions like, hey, what am I
Right,
doing here that's maybe frustrating you, And so, yeah, I think that's
right.
a really key part of this. And like you said, just even getting to that point to where you can self assess, look around your environment a little bit like, hey, am I in the healthiest spot here? And, what can I do to kind of change some things?
And Josh, self-assessment, yeah. What you just said about the self-assessment, that's the number one start in order to make a change. But I forgot to add what you're listening to.
Mm,
Like, even music wise. If I'm in certain moments, I cannot listen to any and everything.
yeah.
And I'm not opposed to any genre of music. Like, I can listen to country, I can listen to pop, EDM, R&B, it doesn't matter. As long as it's good music, of course. But
Yeah.
if I'm going through a hard time and I'm being really, really vulnerable, there are certain songs that I listen to that help me get, to a place where I can feel like I can keep going. So I wouldn't listen to songs that's, like a trap song and I'm down and out about where I'm at. I would listen to a song that's motivational or that can give me some type of encouragement. It just music plays a role in, I would say, majority of our lives. Music, television, social media, all of that plays a huge role and an impact, whether we recognize it or not.
Yeah.
Um, and I can listen to things and not fully believe in what everything is said. And I can like the musicality of it because I'm a musician, but I know what to take in and and what not to take. But especially with the younger generation, and the younger generation, tend to go through a lot. And I'm not even that much older than them. It's
Mhm.
just you really have to be cautious of what you're listening to. And so during that moment when I was stuck, I listened to a lot of motivational things and motivational people and business minded people. I listened to Myron Golden. I listened to Nehemiah Davis. I listened to Milan Harris, um, Gary, I can't remember his last name, Gary V.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so many of these people who are successful and they have something that I'm looking for. I'm just looking for a piece of it, Josh. Okay, not even I don't want everything. I just want a piece.
Mhm.
But it was just pivotal that I just couldn't watch sitcoms like that anymore. And I rarely watch TV anyway. But I just couldn't keep watching Family Guy, and stuff like in the 90s show. No, I had to change my whole perspective. If I did have time to watch TV, let me watch something that's showing me how to create this business, or let me watch something that's helping me change my mindset from what I'm used to and from, what I hear from my family.
Mhm. I relate to all of that, and I think, that's so important because I'm the same way, like, music plays a huge part, right? And so if, like, whatever it is, I want a little
Mm-hmm.
motivation, a little something, I'll put something, upbeat and kinda booming and, get me going.
For example, if I'm grieving, I might listen to, I'm just going to give you an example. It's a song by a lady, it's a gospel song. It's called I'm Still Here. Her name is Dorinda Clark Cole. And I listen to it to motivate me. Now, granted, if I'm grieving and listening to the title, I'm Still Here, one could take it like in a way like well, they're no longer here,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it makes them more sad. But for me, I just try to have that half full glass instead of half empty. I try to have that type of mindset. So even though, yeah, they're gone, I know I'm still, you know,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
still have a chance to live on, and I can show their legacy and be a part of their legacy because I'm still here. And evidently, because I'm still here, there's something else for me to do. There's more purpose that God has for me. You know, some people, everyone goes at different times for whatever reason. But if I'm still here, that means there's something left for me to do. And, you know, time is not guaranteed. So I need to start working towards whatever that purpose is.
That's so true, Shayla. Your book is based on a true story, really. And there's some vulnerability in sharing your story like that and publishing it in a book. I'm curious, like, how's the process been for you writing this book, which you've gotten some great reviews, by the way? What have you learned from just the whole experience of writing that out? Because you said you were called to this. And that spoke to me. And I kind of got that sense from you, like this was a calling. What's that experience been like, now that's out and published? And what do you hope for this book?
For me, I think I said earlier, you don't know why you go through certain things in life. And me being vulnerable is already a struggle, let alone having to explore that and share that with people. That's just something that I personally, that's a struggle for me. Like I'm just that happy person with a smile on my face, and I'm here for everyone else. So I have a hard time expressing my vulnerability. So when I prayed about it, and this is what God told me to do, I'm looking at him like, excuse me, you do know, like, I don't be telling nobody my business. But at the same time, that's why he knows better than I do. Even when I think
Mm.
I know what I want to do and what my strengths and weaknesses are, he has a way of getting my attention and making me see, no, you don't fully know. You got more than you think. And when I was towards the end of publishing and I started telling a few of my friends or about it, and I realized through talking to them, they had some type of um, stagnancy in their life at that
Mm.
time. And I was, towards the end of publishing. I didn't tell anyone until I was at the end of the publishing process. And so I had no idea. One could have had an issue with like a relationship. One could have had an issue with the child. One could have had an issue with the job. It was like two or three different friends. And I was like, OMG, like, that is so crazy. And then I heard God just laugh at me like, see, that's why I had you write the book.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like a wake up call that, and then sometimes I might be a little too humble at times, and I think, that I may or may not impact people the way that I could or that I do. So I wasn't thinking, like this is really going to be helping some people. I'm just thinking I'm putting my business out there. But in the end, it helped me figure out my destiny and what to pursue. And I'm still doing different things, and I still haven't tapped into other things that I thought about. But it helped me in my process of which path to go forth with,
Mm.
as well as helping other people if and when they are stagnant. It's no fun if you're winning by yourself. I believe that wholeheartedly. So I'm so bad to the point where I'm telling everybody else, putting them on game, and I still hadn't even done it yet myself. That's how bad I am. I'll tell everybody, no, you need to do it like this. Okay, look it up, do it like this. Okay. And then next thing you know, I'm looking at myself like, how you going to tell them what to do? And then yours is not done yet, but I'm believing helping people if I can. And, you shouldn't have to learn and go through 3 or 6 months worth of information if I already know it. And you could just skip that process, like go ahead. So that for
Mm.
me, this has helped me in my journey, and it has helped people around me and people that I don't know, which I just would have never fathomed but I'm grateful for that opportunity. That, yeah, it's mind blowing even when I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful thing, when you think about it, because, here you are, like you said in the beginning, like writing a book wasn't even on your radar, thinking about it. And then doing this, being vulnerable, getting through that, writing your story, you're finding more about yourself and your purpose. But at the same time, too, you shining your light like this is allowing other people to be like, hey, it's okay for me to shine my light too. And this book, I think, can help a lot of people who are struggling with some things. They're stuck. They're feeling like, what do I need to do? So I think this is going to help a lot of people. And it's just a beautiful thing. So, I mean, thank you for sharing your gift.
I'm just trying to make an impact,
Mm-hmm.
I would say to the average person, to keep going. Even when you think you're at your lowest, you're not at your lowest. There's some people who have worse situations than what we go through. I would say to have our moment and to continue to thrive and push past any difficulty. Um, Greatness isn't favorited, it's just favored to me. Mm-hmm. So it's just going to take a lot to become that. It's going to take a long time. It's not overnight. It's not microwavable. It's not as fast as TikTok, but in the end, it's worth it if you persevere and dedicate yourself to you. What you do is for you. You should do whatever you love. You should do whatever your heart desires. You should live freely, unapologetically. Just be you, not being anyone else. So I think if we all be ourselves and that we try our best, or let me say, try greater instead of better.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's not even the sky is the limit because it's more above the sky. I would just encourage any and everyone to keep going.
And we can find your book, I'm Stuck, on Amazon, correct?
Yes, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. I even think it's on Walmart.com.
Shayla Jones, thank you so much for being on the show and talking with us today. It was a great pleasure. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, Josh. You're awesome.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate your time with me today, and I hope you enjoyed that conversation. A big thank you to Shayla Jones for her time and being an amazing guest on Table Talks. I'm going to leave a link in the description of the show notes to where you can find her book, I'm Stuck, The Waiting Season. And if you did like the show, please consider a like, a share, subscribe, or follow to wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Table Talks is a Guiding Lights Network podcast, and GLN can be found wherever you like to listen to podcasts: iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and more. Stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll catch you next time on the next Table Talks.